Okay, cool. Well, good morning all. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Piedade from the Psychology Center here in Lisbon. Actually, what I'm going to talk to you about is, the main topic of my presentation is what it takes to be a rescue swimmer. Of course, I'm going to show you a bit of our work in terms of the selection and the assessment that we do for rescue swimmers. I'm not going to focus specifically in mental health issues because, of course, that will be the topic of some of the presentations later on. So basically what I will talk about is actually more concerning the selection of our rescue swimmers, our experience in the Air Force, and of course, I will talk about a little bit of the training and a little bit of some case studies that happened in the United States and in the North Sea, I think, and which concerns some of the work that the rescue swimmers did back then, and some of the protective effects, and also some dangers that they take when they operated in those conditions, in those hardship conditions. So I'm so sorry about my English. If you have any questions later on, if you have anything to ask, so please leave it to the end, and I will be here to answer. So this is basically what it takes to be a rescue swimmer. It was a challenge posed to me by the organization. I thank you so much for being invited to be here today. It's my first presentation in a meeting like this, so I hope to be according to your expectations. This is basically my outline, what we'll talk to you about in these next few minutes. We have a saying in the Air Force, basically in the armed forces in Portugal, maybe you have something like that in your own country. We say that hard training leads to easy combat. The harder you train, basically the easier your mission will be, at least theoretically, right? I will talk to you also about some risks and protective factors concerning your job. And then I will talk to you a little bit about what it takes in the Portuguese Air Force to be a rescue swimmer. We had the chance, and we were actually very lucky to be invited in 2018 and 19 to follow up for the follow-up of a rescue swimmer course in Montijo. And we had the opportunity to be part of the training, to be there in the training of those guys, both in land, in sea, and on board the Merlin helicopter. After talking to you about what it takes to be a rescue swimmer in the Air Force, I will present you briefly two case studies, as I said before, of rescuers in hardship conditions. Okay? And then I will briefly talk about psychological well-being and some considerations concerning this important topic. I will not develop much more because I think you will do that later on. And then I will end with some final remarks. I don't know if it's possible to see this video. Well, basically, as I told you, we were invited to participate in the training of rescue swimmers in the Air Force in 2019. And this is actually one of the training those guys did in Troia, which is basically an area nearby Setúbal, which is a city more to the south of Lisbon. And basically, we had the opportunity to be there and to observe, to talk with the instructors, to see if the training that they had was really well structured, and we got to the final conclusion that they had a brilliant curriculum. The training was really well done, and they have, I think one of the important issues here is that they can be hard on the trainees, but they really can be also comprehensive and empathetic. So I think that's really important in the instruction, in training. Basically, these are the main stressors in training. This is not my work. This is the work of Dr. Sanchez. She did this work in the Coast Guard in the United States. So basically what she says here is that there are a lot of different stressors in training. When trainees are learning to be rescue swimmers, they undergo a different set of stressors. One of those stresses is, of course, uncertainty. Uncertainty is basically one of the main stressors that you can have. When you have the perception that you do not control the reality of what is going to happen next, of course, this can build up to become a real stressor for you. So uncertainty, I don't know what the training will be, what type of exercise I will be doing next, and this will build up to be a real stressor for trainees. Another stressor is instructors, okay? Not all the instructors have some teaching skills, if you like, okay? So basically the instructors and the relation with the instructors can be also a stressor. Another one, of course, is time management, okay? This is basically a set of stressors that are true for rescue swimmers, but are also true for other jobs. And time management is, of course, one key issue here, because we don't, in training, especially in this type of training, in critical situations, we don't control the time that we have to manage things. And of course that's what we need to teach them, because when you go out on a SAR mission, you don't know how many hours or minutes you will be in the helicopter, how many hours or minutes you will be in a ship or in a cliff or something like that. So time management and the ability and the flexibility to manage stress is a core competence for you, as you know, maybe. I think you know this better than me, certainly. One of other stressors that was identified were the assessment and evaluations, of course. They tend to be stressed out when they have an evaluation or an assessment going on. Of course, the physical demands, and in this I would include the fear of injury, and of course life events. Life events is a kind of stress that it's not directly related to training, but of course everybody has friends and family and wife and kids at home, and of course life events is a real stressor when you are in training. You have to be focused on training, you have to be able to cope with the different stressors that you have, and you get a call from home because your wife lost her job or the kids are sick, something like that, and that will mix you up. That will go in your head and definitely influence the way you cope with the stressors in training. Well, I will leave you with some risk and protective factors. Of course, once again, this is not specifically for rescue divers. This can be generalized for other jobs, for other professions, but I would say that previous mental or physical distress, like an anxiety distress, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, panic, and so on. Of course, it's a factor that is really risky, because what we need is stable people, the people that are emotionally stable once they begin their training. And this one, lack of social support from peers, family, and so on, it's, I think, well, the literature says that social support is basically one of the most important coping skills that we can have. One of the most important things that we can have to manage stress is to have a nice environment at home, a nice environment in our job, and to really get some peer and family support. Well, and of course, some other factors are the adverse working environment that you work on, but you know this already. Some of the protective factors, this is quite interesting, because these are the protective factors that we really have to look up when we are in training. So it is expected that a trainee, to fit the hardship of training, can have a good sense of commitment, self-confidence, a good perception of self-efficiency. This means that I'm able to look at myself, look at inside myself, and to see that I have competencies that allow me to produce, to perform well when I'm asked to do it. Another thing is hardiness. Well, hardiness, everybody maybe heard about this term. Unfortunately, we are still in COVID, and in the COVID pandemic, everybody talked about resilience, everybody talked about hardiness. So basically, what's hardiness? Hardiness is a quality that most of you, I would probably say all of you have, that once you are in stressful situations, your psychological structure can modulate to the stressful situation, but once the stressful situation is over, you can return to the initial state, to the initial stable state that you begin with. Okay? So hardiness individuals is what we are looking for when we select rescue swimmers. Basically, we are looking for individuals that look at stress as an opportunity to learn and an opportunity, basically people that look at stress as a competitive sport, a competitive game that I want to win. So basically the protective factor is that here is that the stressful means that I see stressful situations, this means that I see stressful situations as challenges that I must go through, okay? Another thing that is important, of course, we talked about in the last slide, is social support. And social support, it's not basically the support that I have at home, with my family, with my boss, is also in terms of the training that you have, the shared leadership inside the class, inside the classroom, okay? The camaraderie, the similar skill levels, the cohesion, an open communication between classmates. This is crucial if we want to level the social support here. Another thing is actual attention control, and this means the ability to focus, to be concentrated in what I am doing. Of course, my training, and as I told you before, self-control. Although self-control here doesn't relate to what I told you before, to control the reality, to be in control of myself. Self-control here, it's related with a cognitive ability, which is situational awareness, which is the ability that I have to understand what is happening around me at any moment, okay? What happened in the past, what is happening now, and probably what will happen in the future, and be in touch, constantly in touch with my own decisions and with my own abilities, okay? So this is basically, I think most of you, not most of you, but some of you may have contributed to these sentences that are here written, because I took this from a magazine called Air Med and Rescue. They wrote an article last March concerning the characteristics, the profile of rescue swimmers. And they interviewed someone from our squadron, 751 squadron. I think they interviewed someone from Finland, someone from Italy, I think. So basically, these are some of the sentences, some of the things that people said in that interview. And I found it really interesting, because I just talked with someone from Belgium, a colleague of mine, which is in the Belgian army, and both her and me, we share basically the same profile. We look for the same characteristics in rescue swimmers when we do the selection. And basically what we are looking for is a quick thinker, a problem solver, someone that is determined, has grit, the ability to remain calm, be able to work under pressure. This is a critical one, of course. An effective intelligence, high level of physical fitness, stamina, and this is quite interesting and quite important, this last one. I don't know who said this. Maybe if was someone in the room, please say hi. Okay, this last one is quite important in my opinion. Knowing one's limit is also an essential mental attribute to have. This is definitely important, because we don't want people to have a sense of invulnerability, a sense that I'm able to do anything I want. Just put my mind into it and I'm going to do it, okay? I have to be in touch with my own limitations. I have to be in touch with the context limitations, either it's weather or the physical conditions of the rescue that I'm going to do. And of course, being in touch with my crew, this is also important. So we don't want people to think they are Superman, or we don't want people that think they are, or if they are overconfident, we don't want that. We just want people to be able to regulate themselves, especially emotionally, okay, to cope with stress. So basically what I'm going to show you now is to share with you the profile that we have in the Air Force to select rescue swimmers. This is not probably, I don't think this is new for any of you. Basically what we have here is a critical competency. Our scale is from 1 to 3, okay? So the maximum is 3 points. These are the critical competencies, all of these, for rescue swimmers. And the main one, of course, is emotional stability and self-control, the ability to regulate my emotions and to be able to cope with stress, okay? This is what was done by psychologists, of course, but the inputs that provided this information came from 751 Squadron and from my colleagues that are rescue swimmers. Some of them are present in this room, I guess, and they told us what is important for their profession, and then we managed to do the profile using a special technique that we have to profile these characteristics. Another one, of course, is cooperative and supportive, which means that it's quite essential here to work in a crew, to work in a team. Another one is decision making under risky conditions, be able to take decisions even if the context is risky, if I have the perception that I'm in a risky or life-threatening situation. And also the knowledge-oriented and readiness. What we want is people that are open to learning, people that are ready to learn, and people that are ready for the mission, okay? That have stamina, that are dynamic, okay? That's what we are looking for. This thumbs up, thumbs down was a kind of a metaphor that I imagined it could be interesting. It's basically what type of behaviors are we looking for? What type of attitudes are we looking for in terms of a good rescue swimmer, or at least someone that gives us some confidence that will adapt well to the training, and what are the characteristics, the behaviors and the attitudes that maybe will mean that that person will not fit the training as well, okay? This once again was provided by some of our rescue swimmers here in the Portuguese Air Force. So what is important here? What's the thumbs up? What are we looking for, basically? A team player, you are working in a crew, so you have to be a team player. You have to have CRM skills, but I will talk about that in the next slide. So a team player, someone that is physical fit, of course, to deal with the hardship conditions that you work with. Someone that is committed to the mission, committed to the crew, committed to the organization. Someone that is humble, and this is quite important, okay? Maybe from your own experience, you gain a certain perception of high competency, but you must never lose the humility, okay? You never, it is quite important not to lose our humility. Another, of course, critical thing is stress management and, of course, tolerant to change. We are looking for people that are flexible, okay? What are we not? We are not looking for people that have low emotional self-control, people that are really stressed. We do not want people with low commitment and readiness. We definitely don't want people that are overconfident, because this can result in well, I can put myself on a way of danger, and especially I can put the mission and my crew on a way of danger also. So I don't want people to be that overconfident, okay? And I know this is a difficult one for you, because I don't know if it applies to all of your cases and everybody that is sitting here today, but I know it's a real issue in Squadron 751, which is the difficulty that sometimes we have in balancing the professional demands and the home demands, okay? Well, we basically want people that can cope with this somehow, because we know that when you are on the squadron, when you are on the mission, it's really demanding, and this is a really difficult one to achieve. We know that by experience. So what are the non-technical skills? Basically are skills that social, cognitive, and personal skills that can enhance the way you carry out technical skills. And by non-technical skills, I built a bridge, if you allow me to say this, into CRM. CRM is, as you know, a course or a set of tools that we can use to work as a team in a crew level, okay? So basically, the non-technical skills that we are looking for in a rescue swimmer are basically SA, situational awareness, the ability to work as a team, leadership, stress management, decision making, and communication. Communication, as I will talk to you in a few slides ahead, it's quite important, not only for working as a team and to provide and to finish up the mission that you began, but also it's important after the mission, in the debriefing, and sometimes communication offers you a quite useful tool to manage the stress that you undergone when you did the mission. And I just brought this out of curiosity, just to show you a few of the tests that we do for our rescue swimmers in the psychology center. Basically, this is a set of cognitive tests, okay? This is a attention test, this is a coordination test, this is also a concentration test, a memory test, and an information processing test. These are just a few tests that we do. Of course, we do a lot more. And we do also personality assessment. So basically what we are looking for in terms of the cognitive assessment is information processing, work memory, divided attention, vigilance, motor coordination, and so on, okay? So I will very quickly talk to you about two accidents that happened, unfortunately. Maybe you know this one. This is the TWA Flight 800. It's basically a Boeing 747 that exploded in midair. It took off from JFK and then exploded nearby the airport, nearby Long Island. Basically what happened, it was a short circuit in the electrical system of the aircraft that made the central fuel tank explode, and the plane exploded in midair. So what is the reason that I brought this to you and I'm showing you this is that the rescuers that intervene in this accident, well, these are the two factors, protective and negative or risky factors that were identified for those rescuers, okay? So the protective factors, the main factors that protected their integrity in terms of mental health were the social and family support, and of course the training. The training here is quite important. Remember that the first thing that I told you about is hard training leads to an easy mission, okay? So when you do hard training, when you invest in training, you are basically acquiring a set of competencies and skills that will allow you to cope with the distress and the hardship of the mission. So basically in this case, social, family support, and occupational driving training were protective factors, and the exposure to remains of children and the isolated work environment were risky factors in this case, okay? And this is another case, the Alexander Killand oil rig that capsized in Haiti, killing 123 people. Well, basically here, the protective factors were, once again, the training and planning of professional rescuers. It seems that some of the rescuers, well, the majority of the rescuers apparently were not professionals. And once they were not professionals, they couldn't access the training and all the preparation that professional rescuers undergo. So basically they were at greater risk of developing PTSD, and that's what happened in this situation. Finishing my presentation, these are the remaining slides that I have to show you, and I don't want to go on with this because, I mean in terms of psychological well-being, because you will discuss later on. But basically, I would say that working in life-threatening environment, dealing with human suffering, and balancing the job and your personal needs really tends to lead to personal distress. And this, of course, can have some consequences. And the consequences may be some of these, can be other consequences, okay? But most of all, the important thing is that the work that you do, if not controlled, if we don't have a means to cope with the situations, to mitigate some of the situations that you undergone in a mission, can lead to some of these distress, okay? Anxiety, disorders, depression, somatization, which means that I feel sick, I have some problems that are not really related with my physical fitness, are more related with my emotional state, okay? And this is quite important because your immune system, for instance, really depends on our emotional system if you want to build a bridge like connecting the two dimensions, okay? And also, it will tend to lead to aggressive behavior or a very passive behavior, cognitive impairment, which is crucial for your job, right? So if you are in psychological distress, one of the consequences of psychological distress can be cognitive impairment. If you are impaired in terms of cognitive ability, you cannot use your abilities for essay, cannot use your abilities to concentrate, to memorize information, you cannot even use your abilities to communicate with your crew, right? So this will be critical in terms of safety, okay? My colleagues will talk about this later on, but I think it's quite important to mind yourself and your team. So recovery is critical here. There are different recovery experiences, different ways of recovering, either by doing some sport, learning a foreign language, go to the park with your kids, with your dogs, I don't know, something like that, but it's really important to be involved in some kind of recovery experience after work. One other thing that I find quite important is to keep an open communication. Open communication leads to a sense of psychological safety. Psychological safety is a dimension, is a concept in psychology that is really important because it means that you feel at ease to communicate, to say what is in your mind, okay? You don't feel stressed or you don't feel restricted to talk about things that are going on with you in an open sense, in an open way with others. So it's really important for the working environment to be psychological safe, okay? And of course, I think it's quite important, especially in those missions where you undergone critical situations. It was very hard because you found that victim, or because the helicopter was almost running out of fuel, or because the weather was so bad, or because you had a rescuer that, like our guys do, 200 miles or something off the coast, really hardship conditions. It's quite important to sit after the mission and to talk about it. What went well, what wasn't not that good, okay, to discuss things and to be able to open up to others, to be able to talk about things in a free way. And this is quite important, also the peer support programs, but one of your colleagues will talk about this later on. Peer support basically is when I have a colleague of mine that has a set of skills that can be quite helpful for me if I'm undergone some psychological, some emotional stress. He is prepared to help me firsthand, so he's quite, this is quite useful. And finally, some final remarks that we'd like to leave you to. So basically, rescue swimmers work in adverse conditions, as you know, both physically and psychologically. From our experience, one critical situation here is the emotion stability and self-control. These are paramount when we select and assess rescue swimmers, okay? Another thing is hardship may lead to psychological distress, as I told you, which impairs your skills and compromises the mission and the crew, and this will definitely lead to unsafe outcomes. We don't want that to happen, okay? So it must we have to put our money in prevention, and we have to build up a safe environment to work in. Okay? And finally, both individuals and organizations may take or must take action in order to prevent the alignments of the holes of the cheese. What I mean by this is, you know that resin model with the cheese layers that have holes? When the holes align, there's, well, kind of the hypothesis that an accident or incident will happen. We must prevent the cheese layers to align, to the holes to align. So we must be active in preventing these situations, okay? I thank you so much for listening, and I wish you all a good meeting. Thank you so much. Okay.